Hey, everybody, welcome to the Dream Big podcast. And this is a place where I get to introduce you to friends of mine that are kind of making moves in beautiful ways to just make Earth better. So some of you, faith guides your steps, and this is a place where you'll connect with things about faith, and other of you, that isn't the guiding force in your life. But I think you're really going to enjoy what my friend Tasha has to say about life and all that. So Tasha Layton, welcome to the Dream Big podcast.
Thanks for having me. I am so happy to be here. Oh my gosh. I not that I'm not happy to do other people's podcasts, but every time I listen to you, I feel so inspired to just be gung-ho and take on the world. So I'm so excited.
Oh, well, it's a treat to let people meet you that haven't. So for the people that haven't met you just yet, tell us a little bit about what does it feel like to be you?
Well, let me feel myself. I don't know. Currently, my Invisalign have been out for a while. So by the end of this podcast, I could have crooked teeth again. But I love getting to do what I do. I travel around and I sing songs that help people connect with God and with themselves. And I get to use music to hook people in and then listen to what the Lord wants to say and then say it in a large group of people. And I think that's an amazing thing. And I get to do it with my family. Right now I'm touring with my family, my husband and my 2 kids, my 2 miracle babies. And so it's just an exciting time. I feel like I'm living a dream.
Oh, you got to tell us about these miracle babies. And we're also going to talk about this book that you have coming out. So tell us about, why did you call them miracle babies?
Because my husband had known for 10 years that he couldn't have kids when we got married, and it was due to a back injury he sustained as a teenager. And I had been told that it would be difficult for me to carry. I had been told I would have to have a surgery and shots. And long story short, Keith and I prayed at the beginning of 2016 just for God to help us have faith for some big things, and some things that if they didn't happen, they would sting, something that actually required faith. And so I knew that it was supposed to be a baby, and I was so scared to tell my husband because he had already dealt with that kind of pain of infertility. Like, what would it say about God if he couldn't heal me? What would it say about me if he wouldn't? Would I be a bad dad? Did I do something to deserve this? And so I told him, and it was hard in our house for about a week. He needed to process that. And then he came back and he said, you know what? I'm with you. So we believed God for a baby. And we went to Uganda on a missions trip, and we're teaching at the Watoto village there. And I was singing a song one night called Miracles. And I look over to my right, and Keith, my husband, is on the ground crying. And I knew good old conservative boy, on his knees crying in the middle of a service. I knew something was going on. And so he comes up to me in the middle of the song. He says, I think God just healed my back. I can't get it to hurt. And so they prayed for us that night that we'd be able to have a baby. And 3 months later, we were pregnant with little Levi. And it was so special. And then shortly after that, we thought, well, God, are we done? Was that like a one-off? Or are we one and done? And so we prayed again on a vacation at the Jersey Shore of all places. We went on vacation, and I was praying in one room. I felt like God said to pray for another baby, and Keith was praying in the other room, and he felt like he was supposed to do real estate. And we met in the middle in the hallway, and I said, Keith, I've been praying. He's like, me too. He's like, I think God told me to do real estate. And I said, I think we're supposed to have another baby. And so within a month, we had a rental property, and we were pregnant with little Lila. So we have two miracle babies and a rental property. But anyway, so that's why we call them miracle babies. Yeah,
I think it's stretch wide your tent poles. This would be great if you're just becoming acquainted with Tasha now. First of all, welcome to Earth. Second, there's a song called "Look What You've Done." And against that backdrop, as you know, a little bit of the backstory, you can say like, oh, wow. Well, what were you thinking when you wrote that song that has been so popular?
When I went in to write Look What You've Done, I told the other writers. I said, I want to write a song that encapsulates what God has done in my life. I never thought I could feel free. I never thought I could be as happy as I am. And God totally healed my heart in such a way that I feel whole and free. And it's so beautiful. And I want everyone to feel that. And so I really wanted to write a testimony song. And that's what Look What You've Done came out of. And then, I feel like I've lived 10 lives, and a lot of people have asked me, have you started to write these stories down about random stories in other countries and growing up and on tour with Katy Perry and just random things you've done? And I said, I actually have started to write down little stories and little lessons God has taught me along the way. And then it sort of formulated into a book where it's like a memoir meets devotional with some psychology and scripture thrown in. And
it's an awesome book. Look what you've done.
And you wrote the forward.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I think I was going to write it whether you asked me to or not. I'm like, it's just so good. The lies we believe and the truth that sets us free. Tell us about that. Sometimes you can learn a lot about a book by its subtitles. So like what lies come to mind that people oftentimes believe that you just said, like, no, that's just like, this is like the setup before everything changes. Tell us about that.
I think I reached a point in life, Bob, where I realized that I was seeing life through a lens. I was viewing God, myself, other people through a lens of a lie. And the enemy will often try to hook us in a lie when we're small. Satan's not powerful enough to take us out. He's not powerful enough to destroy us. But if he can get us to believe a lie, we will just self-destruct. And it says in scripture, he's the father of lies. And so from the time I was little, I had this lie that I wasn't good enough, that I had to prove my worth, that I had to prove that I was a good person. And that came from a lot of different things. It's for another podcast. But I realized that over the years, that lie infiltrated everything I was doing. It infiltrated my thoughts, the way I carried myself, the decisions I was making. And it wasn't until I got alone with a therapist in Colorado. I had this intensive therapy program that changed my life. And I invited Jesus into those memories of where that lie started. We dug deep to find out where it started. And then once we got to the root of it, then we let the Holy Spirit do the work and say, okay, God, when that happened to me, when this bad thing happened to me, or this trauma happened in my life or my family, what was the lie I took from it? What was the thing I believed about myself or you that wasn't true? How did I feel about that? And then, God, what do you want to say to me instead? And that powerful truth coming straight from the horse's mouth, straight from God. Oh my gosh, it just transformed everything. It replaced that lie with this truth. And now I feel free from that bondage of believing something that's not true. And when you start to really understand how much God loves you, then you start to treat other people differently because you know how special they are. And you're like, oh my gosh, you're a precious treasure. You're smiling at strangers in airports, and you're smiling at people in the street, and there's an extra skip in your step because you realize how much God loves you. And I think that happened for me in my life. And so now I feel like my whole life is just to help people get to that moment of what are the lies you believe? And how can God replace those lies with his truth? And so this book is really a taste test of getting to that process. And then I have a different book called Boundless that's a workbook to help you work through it. So, yeah.
Think of it in Israel. There's a lot of cities. It would be like Tel, and then not Tell, but Tel, which is a mound. Like when you have one city that's built, and then the city gets conquered and turns to rubble, and then they built the next city on top of it, and the next, and the next, and the next. Pretty soon you have a great big mountain. So think of that as your life. And then what you're saying, Tasha, is that you start doing the work of an archaeologist to say, like, what was destructed in my life? What did I build on? You could think of like, what was the myth? What was the lie? And then what was the rule I made around the lie? Like you get burned in a relationship. And so you make a rule. Maybe the first time it happened, if you're listening in high school, you say, I will never love again.
Yeah. I'll never let anyone get to know the real me.
Yes.
I'll always protect myself.
Yes. So you make these rules that actually help create some scaffolding, keep your little fragile life together at the time. They're actually useful, but then these rules, the scaffolding starts imprisoning you. It looks like it's actually, oh my gosh, I just made a jail cell for myself.
Yeah.
I'm living inside in isolation and certainly didn't get hurt by anybody, but also didn't get helped by somebody. So part of that is just identifying what was it that you were exposed to and how did it change you? What was the rule you made that may have been helpful at the time, but it actually wasn't helpful anymore?
My vow, Bob, was I'll always protect myself. I am responsible for protecting myself. I had a dream, and I talk about this in the book. I had a dream when I was 5 or 6 years old. It was a nightmare, and I was scared to tell anyone. And because I didn't tell anyone, I just kept that within myself as a little girl. And I thought, I must be bad to have a bad dream. And for whatever reason, I spent the rest of my life trying to prove to the world I was good or trying to protect myself, where that's God's job to protect me. And you're exactly right. And speaking of the cities, it's almost like the onion. People always talk about peeling the onion. You know, you can deal with some things and get to a second, third, fourth city, and then you feel comfortable for a while, and then something else happens, and then you realize I have more work to do, and that's okay. Getting to the bottom of it is hard work, but it's all worth it.
Yeah, sometimes thinking of Pinocchio for some reason right now, and everybody has a string except him. And sometimes you just need to collect your strings together to say who's yanking on my strings. And what things like shame or an embarrassment, or I've heard it said a couple of times by some friends, one of which I'm married to, that I like people, I just don't like the public. And so you could have people in the public atmosphere that do some crazy things. And they can be innocuous rules, like I don't take naps. It's not like a moral thing. I just don't take naps because I just feel like kind of lethargic. But I drove back from Phoenix, Arizona, which is a long way, much further than I thought it was. I got home at like 2 a.m, and it's a sunny day in San Diego. So I laid on the back porch and I fell deep asleep, like drooler asleep.
I love those.
I woke up, to this sense, you know, when somebody is near you.
Yeah.
I woke up and there's this woman hovering just a foot or two over my face. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not Sweet Maria. And she said, I'm here to render aid. And I'm like, who are you? And why are we speaking in the King James? And she had been walking along the path on the bay, saw me on the porch and thought I had a stroke. So she was there to do mouth to mouth or chest compressions or something.
I'm glad she didn't start.
I know. I made a new rule. I re-upped on that rule. No more naps. So,
oh my gosh.
So what they can be innocuous rules, but they kind of fuss with your mind. It was a sunny day over the weekend, and I thought I'm going to take a nap. I'm like, nah. So the things that can either scar you or shape you, they can inform your future or they can destroy your future. We just need to say, collect your strings. What is that connected to? And then if faith guides your steps, say, can I give this to Jesus? Can I say this fear that I have, that someone will be looming over me, I give that fear away? And can I change some things in the places or the ways that I do naps to not have that happen again? So it isn't just like pray harder. Sometimes it means some correction in your life, a little mid-course correction to say, I need to do a little bit less of this or a little bit less of this here. What's a change that's happening in your life? What's something that's unfolding or emerging as you're learning? You've just done so well with your music. What's some other things that are emerging in your life that you go like, you know, this is a place I need to tweak it a little bit?
I think I'm learning to rest. I think as a person who has tried to achieve or perform my whole life to prove my worth or to avoid rejection or something like that, I have become a workaholic at times. And I think right now I'm realizing that doesn't do any good for anyone around me. to try to pour out from an empty cup. And I heard someone say once, life is like rafting. Sometimes you got to paddle hard. Sometimes you need to rest in the boat, and sometimes you need to get out and play in the water. And I think I have done the paddling really well. At times I've done the playing in the water well, but I've not done the sitting in the boat and just resting. And I think with all that I've been trying to, I'm really feeling like I'm hanging on for dear life right now. I'm on for the ride. I do have goals, and I'm trying to do so, but also I feel like life is being thrown at me in some sense too. And so as a mom and a wife of a husband who tours full time, and I'm touring full time with 2 little kids in an RV. I mean, it's just like, it is nuts on the road.
I'm imagining that for you. I know your tour got Tampa, Little Rock, great. I just named the next 3 days.
It's insane.
Holy moly.
So I believe that God is really trying to teach me rest on a new level, because I think there is an element of rest that is essentially just trusting that God is working while you're resting, that he's got you, that he's got it, and you don't have to make it all happen yourself, that, and I think I did that well as a single person. But I think once I got married and had kids, there were so many other elements thrown in that I have felt that challenge again of how do I find that place of rest from here, where I'm living from a place of rest and not striving for the to-do list to get done today or whatever. Now, I gave up on cleaning my house and having everything straight a long time ago. I'm not talking about shallow things like that. I'm talking, I'm just making sure everyone's fed mainly.
and partially clothed,
and that they're safe, that they're safe and fed. That bare minimum we're talking about. I'm not talking about having them in matching monogram outfits. Like, I really am just trying to accomplish the bare minimum. So I feel like that's what God is teaching me right now, for sure.
Yeah. There's some things in our past that can inform our future. Like, each of us are learning, and we get about 27,383 days. Like, more if you eat broccoli, less if you eat Pop-Tarts. You know who you are. I was thinking about one of my bad first jobs, and I showed up. It was an outfit called Manpower, and they told me where to go. They said there's some jackhammering work to do. And they said, bring some boots. And so I showed up at the place. And when I got there, they put this thing on my shirt. As I went in to do the jackhammering, I'm like, oh, I don't get it. And every hour or so, they would come in and check the little thing they put on my shirt. Get this, Tasha, it was a radioactive hot room. This is what they put.
Oh my gosh.
I can't believe I had kids. Like, so this place, like, what you're being exposed to are these, like, it gives a new meaning when somebody says you're really rad, because they're actually checking the number of rads you get exposed to. So there will be some people in your life that are actually toxic to you. You don't see it. There's no thing, but you feel drained. You feel a little bit used, maybe, like, yikes, like there was an agenda in the room that you maybe weren't aware of. And what I want to say for the people listening, to say, like, just kind of say, who are people in your life that doesn't make them bad people, makes them just fallible and insecure like the rest of us, but they're still working on their people skills a little bit. And I need you to kind of like get this out to say, I'm going to put some boundaries on that, because it's just not good for me to be around a lot of that. It could be the applause. It could be, even though a really daunting schedule, I'm looking at like 30 dates that you've got that you need to be showing up at different places. What are some practices you're using to kind of bring it down a notch? Because I love the practical side to say, this is what I do to guide, get centered. I write. Yeah. I just write.
The first thing I have to do is pray, because there's a reason scripture talks about, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. When you're not setting boundaries and you're afraid to say no, you're really having the fear of man versus the fear of God. You're afraid of what they're thinking of you instead of God's opinion of you. And so the first thing I do is pray, because when I get alone with God and I be still and know that he is God, I'm reminded of who he is and I'm reminded of who I am, and that I don't have to say yes to everything, that I have a calling and a purpose in life, and I can shoot that arrow and hit the target and not have to worry about hitting every other thing. And so having the fear of God instead of the fear of man, that is a huge motivator or not motivator, but it's a huge strength for me in setting boundaries. And then I think having a clear vision too of like, God has called me to some things, and some things I know over the years, I'm a 40-year-old with 2 kids. Like I know that I'm not called to be a professional ice skater, even though I really wanted to be that growing up. Like, I wanted to be the gymnast with the ribbon dance. Like I would love to do that, but I'm not called to do that. And so I think knowing what you're called to do, what your gifts, where they lie, and what you're definitely not called to do, that would be an embarrassment to the USA gymnastics team for me to try to do that. And so I think prayer and knowing what I'm called to, and then having a supportive husband, that has been a huge thing for me, for him to say, honey, are you called to this or not? Because just as much as I need to know the strength to say no, I also have to have the courage and boldness to say yes. And so you need those people around you who say, no, this is what you're called to. Go for it. Don't be scared. Just like Joshua and the Lord's words to him, be strong and courageous, for I've given you the land. And I think having those people in your circle who say, you are called to this and you are not called to this. It's okay if you say no to this, and it's good for you to go after this other thing. I think those 3 things are really important.
Yeah. And also a word to those listening to not get pushed around by your capabilities. Otherwise, I'd still be a trial lawyer. To just say like do the things that are in line with who you want to be known for. That's a great thing. And then what do you want to be remembered for? Like there's going to be someday, I hope it's a long time from now, but I'll be in a jar. The reason that I end up writing books is I want to have something that lasts, something that feels evergreen, that during the period of time that I was here. The reason I'm starting the things I start is I go, this will actually be something that outlasts me. And so if you start thinking about that rather than will it work, you start making that little change to say, will this last?
Yeah.
Because there's plenty of things that'll work, but will it last? And you'll start making some needed changes in your life. And I want to echo the idea of just getting some help along the way. That's just wisdom. If you need a counselor, get 2. That idea, find people to just say, don't be afraid to take the deep dive. And this saying you've heard no doubt before, we can only take people as far as we've gone ourselves. So just say, I want to go farther. I want to go deeper. I want to know generationally, how can I stop now the things that have created some problems before? A word as a family, when your kids get a little bit older, where our kids are like 30, 32, 34, we'll curate events, bring in somebody we really respect, and just sit around the dinner table together and talk about something, maybe some gap I could see in the family, or understand the way different personalities interact with each other. Like curate for your family gatherings of people that everybody in the family would know and respect.
That's awesome.
And just don't wait to just go or read a book or join. It's just like actually make that happen. So every period of time that goes by, we'll just bring in another person and we'll get some pizzas and just say, let's go a little bit deeper. And I want to say, like, the things that I've done inadvertently that are messing people up, let's like call it out and figure it out. And one of the things that in this beautiful intervention, the assumption in my life has been for 20 years that I'm gone and on the way home. And I'm trying to change the assumptions in my life that I'm home and I might be going somewhere. And so think of some hacks for yourself. Like, how can I change the assumption about my life? The assumption is that I'm all the happy guy. And so then you could be known as the happy guy, even though you're going through some really hard things. To say, what if you change the assumption that I'll be the authentic guy? I'll just say the way it is. Oh, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but what was something that rose up for you when I said changing the assumptions in your life? What would be something for you, Tasha, that you might change an assumption that people make about you?
something that I was dealing with before that that I have changed the assumption, or something I'm dealing with now that I want to change the assumption?
Either.
I think for many years I was known as the strong one. Right now I'm getting tickled inside because I hear my 3-year-old singing Encanto songs. There's a song on there that I'm the strong one. I'm not nervous, and I think for so many years I was known as the strong one because I put up this wall of I'm not vulnerable. I don't need anything from anyone. I can do it myself. And I think instead I would like to be known as, like you said, the authentic one, because I do need people. I do have weaknesses. I am vulnerable. I am all those things. And I love what you said about, you don't want to be known as the trial lawyer. Like, you're not putting yourself in a box. I think when I gave my life to ministry, I was 13 years old at an altar while Stephen Curtis Chapman's We Will Abandon It All for the Sake of the Call was playing.
Come on.
And every time I hear that song, I still cry. But I was the first one down to the altar. I ran from the rafters in that arena to get down to the altar first. And what I said to God was, I don't care what I do. I just want to help people, and I just want you to use me. And I think from that point on, I knew my life was not my own. And I thought, there might be times and seasons where I sing. There might be times I speak. There might be times I'm writing. There might be times I'm doing all these things, or none of it, or all of it. I think it's just going with the flow and not getting boxed in by one thing. And the minute we try to say we are this, I think that's where we need to calm down.
Yeah. So that sense that everything needs to be up and to the right, that it needs, that success is up and to the right, that we have more people or more this and that, but to just say, what I want to do is be more present, more self-aware, and then aware of other people. Like, what do I have that I can help you with? In the many of the faith traditions are out there, there's a job called a porter. And a porter doesn't just carry all your stuff up to the top of Everest, but in the Benedictine tradition, the porter meets people at the gate and says, how can I help you on your way? And so I just want to be that person. Philippians 2:20, take a genuine interest in other people's welfare. So to just think of the things that if you were listening to this and then you see your mail carrier, to just stop them, offer them a bottle of water, sure, but say, what does it feel like to be you today? And they'll know that you actually mean it. You'd be like, wow. And then the next time you see them, and even if they deliver the mail to the wrong people, as does mine, that you have a different layer of understanding. You have a different layer. And I want to be not so busy doing all the things around me that I forget, the small, important things, right in front of me. So that's my hope for you in this really challenging, as I look at your schedule, wowzers, there's a busy gal, but at the same time, I'm just so delighted that you as a family are doing this together. And I really hope that people will ask themselves, are there lies that are taking me away from the things that matter the most? I'll tell you, for guys, and it's not just men, but many men experience this. They have this strong desire to provide for their family, as do women. But sometimes you can be so busy providing for your family that you're not providing for your family what they need. And what they need is an authentic me, an authentic you to show up.
Same for moms. The dishes will get done, or just throw them away, or use paper plates.
Shock him that the sun is going to rise in the morning. If everything isn't, whatever magazine you identify with, perfect in that. But to just say that moment that we have to just ask somebody a question that really shows that we matter, that we're present. And it's the difference between performing, which is to be in front of people and all that. And you can be authentic to a group of people that can really know you and know your heartbeat and know what's hard and what's easy, but finding safe people. Has that been hard for you to develop or easy?
I think before I had my transformative experience in counseling, I think that was really hard for me. After, it's been a lot easier. I think I have no issue now opening up. I think I rarely meet people that I feel are unsafe because I just don't feel the need to like protect myself anymore or put up a front of who I think people think I should be, or, I just feel pretty myself and I don't feel like I'm hiding anymore. And it's so freeing. And I think I want everyone to feel that. And I love what you said about everyone feeling loved. Like, I want everyone to walk away feeling a sense of love and feeling that I saw them. And that's one of the names of God, the God who sees, like the God who sees us, and he sees everything. And I think I want people to feel seen and known, and loved for the good, the bad, the ugly.
I want to tell you something you did uniquely in our life. There was like some people know our home burnt to the ground, and with it, everything we had really cherished, photographs and all that, up in Canada. And I arrived home, and that I think Maria must have ordered a refrigerator or something, because there's this gigantic box on the front porch. And I'm like, what in the world is in there? And I open up this box, and inside is this magnificent painting. And inside this painting is of the place where the greatest hurt in our entire life happened. And this painting became the greatest joy. It was so hopeful. It was so forward thinking. And I thought, what in the world? And I opened up this little card, and it came from you.
Yay.
And I just like, there's something beautiful about that from people that you trust, that know your point, the places that bring you joy, the places that are hard. And I just want to say that for decades, probably generations to come, this painting's going to be on the wall.
I love
And
that.
a little note from you. And I'm just like, I just want to thank you for knowing that pain point. And also, you just sprinkled so much hope for you over it. The book, you guys, is Look What You've Done, the life we believe, the lies we believe, and the truth that sets us free. So, Tasha, thank you so much for spending some time on Dream Big with us. And
it is
I just
my
hope
honor.
this is just great. So you guys, here's a word to you. I don't know if you've been stuck in traffic or jogging or whatever. If I was jogging, I'd still be jiggling 30 minutes later. But what I want you to do is not agree with some things that you heard from Tasha, but to actually do something about it. You're not going to find one thing in the scriptures where Jesus asked his friends to agree with him. He said, like, let's go do something. So the next 5 minutes is the best 5 minutes. This is you deciding what you're going to do about what you heard from Tasha and this idea. And then to also maybe pause and say to God, if faith guides your steps, to say like, wow, God, look what you've done in my life. All right, you guys, you've been listening to the Dream Big podcast. See you next week.